Welcome to the Wealthy Speaker Podcast, the show that offers you tips and strategies to help speakers build the business of their dreams. Now here's your host, 30-year industry veteran and business coach, Jane Atkinson.
Hey, welcome everyone to the Wealthy Speaker Podcast. I'm your host, Jane Atkinson, and today we're talking about turning lemons into lemonade. Gaby Natale is here with us. Welcome back to the show, Gaby.
Hello, Jane. So wonderful to be back here. Hello, everyone.
Now, we did a podcast earlier talking about how to be a pioneer in the speaking industry, which you have absolutely done. We've worked together in the past, and as I was kind of leaving our coaching time together, you were a rocket heading into space, and I could see you're talking to Fortune 100 companies, you're talking to massive associations. You are out there just killing it. Talk a little bit. We're going to talk about diagnosis that happened kind of at the peak of all of this, but talk about your life and your business and all the things that were going on kind of last year prior to said diagnosis.
Yes, so you are right, Jane. Last year was which is 2023, because I don't know when they're going to watch this. 2023 was one of my best years. And as you said, I was speaking to and I'm still speaking to major brands, but in that year, I remember it was Estee Lauder, Walmart, you name it. We had a lot of financial institutions. We had Toyota. We had so many global names.
Yes.
And not just that, but it was a very special year on a personal side for me because of two things. One, I had the dream of remodeling my home, which I have accomplished. This room is one of the rooms we transformed.
For those of you watching on YouTube, Gaby has a gorgeous background, which is all in my color, by the way. Yay.
Yes. So kind of groovy and infusing a little bit of who we are and our personality to our home.
Mm-hmm.
And then something very special that happened to me is that it was our 20th wedding anniversary with my husband. And when we got married, I'm an immigrant from Argentina. And in the year 2003, when I got married, it was a city hall wedding, 5 minutes with a bad video, pictures that were lost, very casual, too casual. I remember that I went to work in the morning because I was new in the country and I didn't want to bother anybody. So I just took half day off, not to inconvenience anyone.
Yes.
And I got married in the afternoon. So so 20 years go by, and I remember in that video, in that homemade video, my husband looked at the camera and in a moment he says, one day, because he was talking to our family, one day we're going to get to celebrate together. 1 year goes by, 10 years goes by. We have then the money and we say, shall we do a wedding or a pool? And we said, no, let's do the pool first.
That would be my choice too. Pool first, wedding next.
Because I was doing the seating chart, and you know how sometimes people don't get along with other people. Yes. I started getting anxiety, and I said, let's get the pool first. So lots of years go by, and then 20 is a big number. And we said, our parents are not getting any younger. Like, this is the moment. So
beautiful.
We did our dream celebration in Buenos Aires. Beautiful. Everything was like a fantasy story, beautiful, the dress, the venue, everything was like a palace. And then what happened, and you talked a little bit about diagnosis, everything came at the height of a fantastic year. And then that was in December. In February, it's Valentine's Day. And I wake up on Valentine's Day and I receive a text notification from a clinic saying that my mammogram was due. And I was like, oh my God, it's Valentine's Day. These are my options. Sleeping a little bit more and eating chocolate or getting squeezed in a mammogram.
Yes, yes,
chocolate and sleeping, mammogram. Like,
yes.
for 1 second, I almost canceled or rescheduled. But because I know, Jane, that my schedule is very busy, I said, no, I'm gonna
You got to
stick.
do it.
Yes, I gotta do it. I'm gonna do it. Also, I have dense tissue, which is something that gives you
Yes.
as a woman higher percentage of breast cancer. So long story short, the test does not go as planned. We start getting into biopsies and more research. And then I remember when a doctor that was a radiologist looked at me and he said, you have to go to biopsy. And I was like, not really understanding what was going on, because life
Yeah.
sometimes changes like this in one moment.
Yes. Yes.
And he said, lady, you're not understanding. You are going to need an oncologist, a surgeon, a whole medical team, because you're going to biopsy. But I'm already seeing here in the screen from the tests that this is a very suspicious mass of tissue. And I was like, two options. One, this is the meanest doctor in the planet and he's taking pleasure in scaring me. Or
Yes.
B, he's really confident in what he's seeing in the screen.
Yes.
And he wants
Yes.
to make me understand what's going on. And so in March, we got the official diagnosis that I had breast cancer.
Oh, and I can't even imagine, like the blood just drains from my face thinking about how you must have felt that day. I do have some Kleenex handy if it's necessary. There's just a lot going on in the world right now, by the way. We're a day after Hurricane Milton, we're 2 weeks after Hurricane Helene, and there's just a lot of strife going on. Now, I've been watching the news all morning and I'm a little bit emotional. And your story breaks my heart because in my mind, I think, what would I do if I got that diagnosis? I'm very lucky. I don't have it in my family and I have no reason to be concerned, but I just know that it's so common. Is it 1 in 3 women?
1 in 8.
1 in 8 women
will be diagnosed. So if you're a woman and listening to this, please, early detection saves life. Go make your appointment.
Do not sleep in and eat chocolates. Go to your mammogram appointment. I actually have one. I've had a lump that bothers me and I've had it biopsied before. And so I'm actually going next month for all of these tests. And they're not fun, but they're life-saving.
They are.
And I think that that's the most important thing. If somebody that's all they walk away with from this podcast, then okay, great. The men that are listening, go make sure that you're supporting your women to do exactly that. Okay. So you get this diagnosis and you have bookings on the calendar.
Yes.
You are booked months and months and months in advance. What immediately starts running through your mind?
So first thing is, when you get the diagnosis, it's not, at least in my case, it was not like the surgeon was available next day. So you still have to wait a few weeks. So, and our lifestyle as speakers is traveling. So, now I look at it back and I kind of laugh, how drama and time, it creates humor, because I look at it in hindsight and kind of laugh about it. But really, I was doing some second opinions and some telemedicine from airports, from airport lobbies where I had zero intimacy, asking questions like, what is my life expectancy if my life was in danger? Am I going to be able to preserve my breast? All these very private questions from the lobbies, from airports, because you cannot stop things in 1 minute when you have this lifestyle.
Yeah. And can I just say,
yes,
when you're in the stage of gathering information, let's say you haven't sat down with the oncologist and gotten an actual diagnosis yet. Something that somebody who went through all this said to me, I'm just gathering information. Like, don't freak out.
No.
preemptively. Don't freak out before you actually know what you're facing. I'm okay with planning and making a plan. And okay, if this happened, then this and this and this would need to occur. But let's not lose our minds until we actually are sitting in front of the doctor. Sometimes you're in the gathering information stages.
Yeah, and I think two things help me, Jane, to be honest. One, I think when we hear the word cancer, it's very shocking.
Oh, yes.
But we always associate it with the people we had around and the experiences that we've seen.
Yes.
So for me, the word cancer, I was associated with my mom, who is a survivor. She had early detection. So it's been 15 years. She's healthy. She's fine.
So positive. You were like, okay, I can beat this.
Exactly. And then another thing that happened was, I don't know, I was like you said, not so much freaking out about it, like very focused looking for the information, gathering all my medical history. And then what I did, because I had a few weeks until seeing the surgeon here in the States, I booked second and third opinions with doctors in Argentina, where I am from. And so what was fantastic was that in my case, all three doctors said the same. Imagine I showed you a picture and doctor number one says it's a dog. Doctor number two says it's a dog. Doctor number three says it's a dog. Then you have the clarity.
You got a dog.
Yes. The diagnosis is exactly like this. And then next step is walk in the park. Second doctor, walk in the park. Third doctor, walk in the... So they all advised the same next steps, and they all diagnosed the same thing. And that, I think, gave me a lot of peace, because I think sometimes when people have conflicting messages, conflicting stories, that's when it gives you even more of an anxiety, because you are facing something that is unknown, and you have mixed information, and you don't know who to trust.
And I don't think there is any problem with asking for a second opinion. And especially where you feel more confident, perhaps in the doctors back home in Argentina, maybe that's what it took for you to go, okay, I'm good.
Yes, what happened was that the doctor here, we had to wait like 3 weeks for the appointment or so. So in the meantime, we were already moving forward, because we first had to make the decision, am I doing the treatment here? Am I going to do the treatment in Argentina? And then even the doctors in Argentina said, you have early detection, you're in an early stage. It doesn't make any sense for you to make such a long trip and to do all of that. I was very privileged and fortunate of having health insurance in both countries. So I was able to make the choice if I wanted. So and going back to what happened when I got the diagnosis, the week when I got the diagnosis, I had to keynote in San Antonio and in New York that week. So for two global companies, one was a cosmetic company, the other one was consumer goods. So so what I did is I work with different, when I travel with my producer. And this time the dates were very close between the San Antonio and the New York. So I had to work with two producers, one in San Antonio, one in New York, because in New York, we were doing a full day training. It was not just a keynote.
Oh, it was a big event. And
it was a big...
I'm going to come back to that, because I want to know more about the producer idea. So, okay. So you had these two very back-to-back. San Antonio and New York is not a hop, skip, and a jump. It's a big...
So what I did is, my producers didn't know what was going on. So what I did is I had one of the consultations, the virtual consultations with a doctor, let's say at 1 p.m. And you know what happens with planes? They get delayed. So my plane going to the venue got delayed, but I still had that consultation. So what I did is I sent my producer to do the tech checkup on his own, so that I could do, reschedule my flight. He didn't understand what was going on. Like, she's a crazy boss. She's rescheduling everything.
Yes.
But I think in that week, having, being able to focus in work as I was getting the
Was
information was
helpful.
the best thing for my mental health.
Could you compartmentalize and just, okay, I'm setting that aside right now and I need to
Yes.
go on stage? Because I did want to ask how you were feeling emotionally. Now, fortunately for you, your mom had this good outcome. So there wasn't such dread. You know, my dad went through non-Hodgkin's lymphoma twice, and the chemo nearly killed him. And I still hear him falling down the stairs one night in the middle of the night. I was living with him at the time, and it was the worst sound I've ever heard. And it still breaks my heart to think about that. But the doctor said to us at the end of the 2 rounds, he said, lymphoma is not going to be what kills you. So you're good to go from here. And he was right. That doctor was actually right. That wasn't what took him away. So I don't know. I don't know how I would feel about a cancer diagnosis. I think I would probably be pretty damn scared.
And I think that's an important message that you bring up, Jane, that when you hear the word cancer, and when it happened to my mom, she couldn't even say the word. She told me, Gaby, I got the tests back. I got carcinoma, la, 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 la. And I was like, okay. And then I hung up and I go to the first thing that you do, you Google, you know? So I Googled carcinoma and then I found out it was cancer. And then I called her. I said, like, Mom, is it cancer that you have? And she said, yes. We were both crying and in the, on the phone. But sometimes it's even hard for people to say the word. And I think one of the biggest takeaways for me is knowing that and raising awareness that cancer doesn't have to be a death sentence.
Yes.
And B, there's like a spectrum, I'm not a doctor. So there's this spectrum of, there could be something that is in the very early stage, and there could be something that is very advanced, and the experience is very different, and the disruption it brings to your life is very different. The treatment is very different but the thing is, because many times we see like the worst cases, we believe that everything has to be in that way.
Yeah. We used to have, I don't know if you've had this in the US, but in Canada, the Canadian Cancer Society had the slogan, cancer can be beaten. And so that's something that my best friend at the time, who worked for an oncologist, reminded me of, well, cancer can be beaten. And so it's not necessarily the end. And we have a lot of people in our world, in the speaking world, who have been through it and know firsthand, they're survivors when people said they wouldn't.
And Jane, there's a lot of people who've been through it and are not saying anything because they are scared. Because one thing that I've learned going through this experience and being open about it is that there's people every day who are showing up in their jobs, different jobs. I received messages from news reporters and anchors who are going through chemo, and they're freelancers and they're hiding it and they're wearing a wig and they're doing like physical work that is very hard to do, and they're pretending nothing is going on. And I'm sure in the speaking world, there's people doing the same. And in every, industry, there's people doing the same because they are scared to be discriminated, because they are embarrassed, because they are, scared for their lives. So a big thing is and I am somebody who's dedicated a lifetime to communication. So for me, it was 3 steps. First, communicating it to myself and getting and gathering all the information and kind of processing it. But in that moment, it was just my husband and I who knew that. I had the surgery, and it was only after the surgery that I communicated it to my parents and my extended family. Because they live far away. They're not getting any younger. So all they can do is feel mortified. And then I allow them a few months to process in private, and for, all my treatment to evolve and to have great news and everything. And that's when I communicated it publicly to the world. And I went to a national television morning show,
Yes.
And I partnered with Susan G. Komen, which is one of the biggest organizations in breast cancer prevention. And I became an official ambassador for them.
I love that. And let's talk about the fear that a speaker might have that, oh, if somebody thinks I've had cancer, they might think I'm not okay today and they might not book me. Speak to that a little bit, because when you go and you blast it out to the world, and I love your 3-part, first I communicated it to myself, and I communicated it to my inner circle. Then I went big with it. And I love that idea, because you need to process this too. Going out to Facebook the day after, maybe that's the right thing for some people, but I kind of like your 3-part.
Yeah. Every person is different. I have people who said, like, for me, even at the biopsy phase, it's good to know that people are praying for me, that people are lighting a candle.
I really believe in the power of prayers. And so I let's insert that as well, because everybody's going to have their own path with this. But I just love that you kind of had like a bit of a strategy here. And I like that you did it fearlessly. Now, let's also be clear. You're not going to speak about cancer until maybe later on. Like, you are speaking about how to be a pioneer in life.
Yeah, my topic is leadership. My topic is leadership. And now, since this year, I happen to be a breast cancer survivor, and I'm a Susan G. Komen ambassador. As of today, October 2024, I don't have a keynote that is dedicated to that. What I have been doing in some, not every keynote, but in some of the keynotes, I have been including some stories. So, for example, 4 weeks ago, I did a keynote for Procter & Gamble. They have consumer products for the home, for skin, for the hair.
Everything is P&G, everything.
So there was a moment when I talk about how to be a pioneer and how to tap into your uniqueness. I talk about what are the stories, what are the opportunities, and what are the white spaces in your industry that you can identify. And I mentioned many different examples from different industries. And then I said, I'm going to tell you an example from my real life that happened this year. What are the stories? The story this year was that I became a breast cancer survivor. Then what are the opportunities? The opportunity to serve. I became a Susan G. Komen ambassador. What are the white spaces? The white spaces that we identified working together with Susan G. Komen was a space at the intersection of beauty, diversity, and well-being. When we talk about diversity and beauty, we always talk about beauty coming in all forms, shapes, sizes, colors, ages, but we never incorporate the beauty of people who are recovering, or the beauty of people whose body has changed permanently or temporarily. So next year, we're launching a campaign that is called Beauty in Resilience to incorporate all of that. And what I shared with the people in Procter & Gamble was, when you are going through a process like that, your everyday rituals and your everyday products become everything. So a home that is clean and disinfected is not a nice to have. It's something that you need for your immune system. The creams that moisture your skin when you're going through chemotherapy are not a nice to have, are something that you need because you are more dehydrated. And the last part, I said, like, who is here working on shampoo and conditioner? Because I have something to tell you. Putting up the hands right here. Let me tell you something. You may know this or you may not know this, but when you're going through chemotherapy and you don't have hair, you still have to shampoo and condition, because your hair might not be there, but your scalp still is. So everything you do, they have a podcast that is called More Than Soap. So everything you do, of course, is more than soap. For everyone, but particularly for people who are going through journeys like this.
So I was very curious about, because the first post I saw, and we poo-poo social media all the time, but this is how I'm staying abreast of what's going on in people's lives. And I miss 80% of it, but I caught your post and you were wearing a headscarf.
Yes.
And I thought,
A
and then I've
turban.
watched you ever since then with a headscarf on. Talk a little bit about that and how it affected you in your speaking.
No, it didn't affect me and my speaking, because this concept of beauty and resilience is like you have to make that journey whatever you want to make it. So if you want to go outside and have your bald hair, which I do, and many times on social, I take it off and I just have my bald hair, that's fine. If you want to wear a hat or a turban, that's fine. If you want to combine a little wig with a beret like I'm doing today, that's fine as well. The idea is that you can make of it whatever you want to make out of it.
I love that. I think that's a great message for people to hear. And
in my first, Jane, something very funny. In my first keynote that I did, that I was cancer free, it was a very big event for Ambit Energy here in Dallas. And I said, like, this is the event. This is the first one that I'm doing right after cancer. So at the very end, I said, okay, kids, don't do this at home. And I don't advise this for any other speaker. But I had to do it, and everything turned out really great. But at the end of the keynote, I was wearing a wig, and I said, like, thank you so much. It's been an honor being today with you. And I want to share two things with you. One, today is my wedding anniversary, because it was my wedding anniversary. So, it's a special day. And two, this is my first cancer-free speech. Tomorrow is my last chemo, and I removed the wig and I started celebrating. It was fantastic.
That is such a big deal. That is such a big deal. I had a friend who went through cancer and she was wearing a hat all the time. Hat. Every time we saw her, she had the hat on. And with us, my husband and John and I, she took it off for the first time out in public. And I felt so honored to be a part of that with her. And you did it in front of 1,000 people. Oh my gosh.
Yes.
That's
And
amazing.
I still do it sometimes whenever there's something where I feel like there's women who may feel ashamed or bad or with anything.
Yes.
Because we go through some moments where sometimes you have a clean hair and it looks very polished. Sometimes you have patchy, sometimes you have something. So it takes maybe a few months until you have like a proper haircut, but that's fine. That's why I say you can do it your own way. You can do it. There's beauty in resilience. It's okay if you want to wear a wig. It's okay if you don't want to wear it. It's okay if you want to have a turban. And I'm getting ready to have all kinds of pixie and, bucket list haircuts.
Yes. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Well, good. I'll be following that, and I look forward to seeing what you come up with, and I know it will be beautiful. Let's go back just for a second, because there had to be a moment where you said, okay, I've got all of these dates playing, but I'm going to be doing chemo and radiation, and I'm not maybe going to be able to make them. Talk a little bit about how you communicated that, what the plan was.
Some of them I was able to reschedule. Some of them are direct clients, and I had some flexibility. Some of them was able to reschedule. Some of them were ahead of time, so I let them know that they needed to have a second opinion. But here's the thing, Jane, this is not the case, so this is like the small print. This will not be the case for every speaker or for every patient.
Yes.
But in my case, really, the chemo was not one of those cases where it's the strongest. So you feel fatigue probably the week after the chemo, and then you start feeling more like yourself. So I went on walks, and I took a trip to Las Vegas with a friend, and this Ambit Energy keynote that I'm talking about was before even finishing my chemo. So I cannot generalize, because each case is different. And also I feel that chemo in 2024 is very different from chemo 20
Yeah,
years ago.
back when it almost killed my dad. Yes,
Yes,
absolutely. That
yes.
was probably in like the 90s or something like that. So yeah,
Exactly. So it has evolved a lot.
yes.
Now, with radiation you have to do it every day, Monday to Friday. So in that state, really, yes, you may have to think about if you can travel and come back. So something that is closer,
Yeah,
or you can talk to your doctor. I wouldn't recommend skipping a lot of your radiation sessions, but maybe you can squeeze one, one trip and talk to your doctor to
right.
compensate it at the end. It's all about, like, in hindsight, what I would say is maybe it would have been great to have more virtual, because the virtuals, would be something that I would have been able to not have to reschedule at all.
Yeah.
But the traveling, yes, it does get,
So
yes, it
let's
requires some
talk
more.
about the communication with the clients. I think that tendency might be to withhold, or perhaps that's what it feels instinctual. Let me just hang on until the 11th hour. But I actually think openly communicating as soon as you can, to say, I am planning to be there. So, based on you don't have all the information yet, I am planning to be there, but can we please get a backup plan in place?
Yes.
And it's nice if you yourself have a backup option for them if they don't come up with anything. But chances are very good that these people that you are dealing with have, they're seasoned meeting planners, and they can come up with a backup idea.
And then something that helped me a lot was the timing, because, Jane, by the time I had to do chemo and all of that, it was the summer months, which tends
Thank
to be
God.
slower. So it really didn't disrupt it that much.
Oh, that's really
Because
lucky.
yes, because the
Yeah.
timing was really good in that
Oh,
sense.
that's
And
good.
now, and since I recovered, I've spoken to Ambit Energy, to Procter and Gamble, to Google. I'm traveling in 2 weeks for Johnson and Johnson, so I'm back on the road. It feels very exciting, to resume normal life.
Yeah.
And I don't know, I've always felt in good spirits. I always felt like, and you become more appreciative of everything.
Oh gosh, for sure. And of doing the things that are on your bucket list and making sure that you're taking advantage of every day. Okay, last thing. Talk about the Susan G. Komen cold email.
Yes.
You wrote them a letter and said what?
Well, I've always been a proactive person, Jane. The first time that I made it to national television was because somebody had to be there. And I was like, hey, if this person doesn't show up and you're in my little market, and you're in this big national TV show, and your national reporter for some reason cancels, I volunteer. Like, nobody knows me, and I'm the local reporter in this small market, but I volunteer. And guess what happened? This person
They didn't show
canceled.
up.
Something happened. So this idea of, being proactive, it has always been big in my life. Pitching
Yes.
myself to clients, pitching myself for my first national TV appearance. So once I was wrapping up treatment, I said, I told you 3 steps. First, I communicated it to myself. Then I communicated it to my world, meaning my family, friends, etc. And then it was time to communicate it with the world. And I knew when I was going to communicate it with the world, there was going to be a lot of inquiries, like about the treatments, about resources. This is what happened to me. And I'm not a doctor. So I wanted to be able to channel all of these to the right people and the right associations.
So good.
And so I said, how can I make a positive impact? I did my research. Susan G. Komen is biggest, most prestigious around the world. So I said, I'm going to write an email if I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it right. I'm going to pitch the president. So I wrote an email to the president of Susan G. Komen. I researched who she was. And I said, this is who I am. This is what happened to me. This is how I feel I can be of service and help. And if you feel like this is something that you would like to partner in, just let me know. I'm ready to work together. Not even 2 hours later, I got a response, and
Oh my God.
they told me like, this is my team, I'm copying them. And we've been doing interviews, we've been doing campaigns, we've been doing many different things, and for everyone, but also particularly for the Hispanic community as well.
Yeah, I was just going to say that was probably a great opportunity for them, because I'm thinking women of color in general may not have been served as well what a great opportunity.
And we get diagnosed at a later stage compared to white women, because we don't go to our annuals as frequently. Yeah. So that's a big thing. And they have a lot of bilingual resources and resources in Spanish. So if you want to visit in English or in Spanish, comment with a K, comment.org. Or if you want to see things in Spanish, comment with a k.org/español.
I think it's KOMEN. Is that right?
Yes.
en.org. Okay. Okay. That is so good. We're going to put those in the show notes. Gaby, how would you like to be communicated with if anybody wants to kind of reach out and give you a shout out?
Absolutely. My website, gabynatale.com. Or any of my socials at Gaby Natale. That's the easiest way to reach out to me.
Okay, GABYNATALE, just to get that spelling on there. We'll put that in the show notes as well. Thank you so much for sharing your time. I do want to have you back because you're someone who's out of the news media. I do want to have you back to talk specifically about how to pitch to PR. And I'm so grateful for you to share how to turn lemons into lemonade. You really took the bull by the horns. And thank you so much for sharing this journey with us.
Thank you so much, Jane, for the space, for the respect, for your warmth as a host. And I'm happy and looking forward to the third time coming here to your show.
Okay. That's a date. Okay. We'll see you soon, Wealthy Speakers. Bye for now.
Thanks for listening to the Wealthy Speaker Podcast. If you need help building the speaking business of your dreams, head over to wealthyspeakerschool.com and take advantage of our 20-minute next step call. Thanks for listening to the Wealthy Speaker Podcast.